It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, March 20th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is excited to see how your draft rankings have changed in the last month.
Yeah, sometimes I forget how they've changed.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. And to keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials, and of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are going to dig into your new rankings, Russ, as well as talk about two Swedish teammates that are high-end draft prospects in Anton Frondell and Victor Eklund. And given the Flyers' position in the draft order as of now, these could be very realistic options for the Flyers.
For
So
sure.
excited to talk about them. Meanwhile, the Flyers do face the Washington Capitals tonight, and ahead of that game, John Tortorella was asked about several of the younger players. I thought it was just an interesting take he had on a couple of things. He talked about Bobby Brink's increased ice time and addition to the penalty kill. And it does seem like Torts is looking for a Scott Lawton replacement, and like Bobby Brink is candidate number one here.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens. I mean, sometimes a trade has to happen for that to happen. As an example, I saw Morgan Frost on the penalty kill the other night.
Mm,
So that's
interesting.
a lot of times. So that is a good thing to do.
Yeah, I think so. He also talked about Jamie Drysdale, and he talked about Brink and Drysdale together, and that these are two players that have been pushed really hard, but have really accepted the coaching and the challenges that they have been presented. And he spoke really highly of both of them. And we know he's also in the past not spoken highly about
hmm
these guys. And so I do recognize that when he turns around and says, yeah, these guys have listened and they've made improvements, like, that means something with Torts.
It does, and that definitely will catch our ear, and as it should, because yeah, he's sometimes picks and chooses when he's going to do that. To be honest.
Right. He does. And so that's why I think it's important to recognize when he does
Yeah.
actually praise progress and
Yeah.
improvements on players. We talked about in the last game against Tampa that it was very much improved over the game on Carolina, where they had to block a ton of shots.
hmm
He recognized that as well, and that he's not ever going to give up blocking shots as a tactic, but he does recognize that they blocked much fewer shots against Tampa because the puck possession was better.
Yeah, I mean, that's something at least you're doing an in-game adjustment, and to be honest, that's the very least you could do. So
Yeah.
at least if that's a change for him, great, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. And as far as some of the other guys, he was asked about the call ups that have taken place, right at the
Yeah.
trade deadline and how they're doing. And he talked a bunch about Jacob Peltier, who we have talked about pretty extensively, of
hmm
wanting to get him more ice time just so we know what we have. And he's a kind of player that needs more ice time to get into the flow of the game. And Tort said that he liked his skating, his quickness, his enthusiasm, but he does worry about his size and, like, can he
Yeah.
be a checker out there? And is he ever really going to be a scorer? So that he's going to continue to watch him, but he also wasn't really willing to commit to giving him that more ice time, which is part of the problem here.
Right. So the thing is, you've watched him enough. You watched him before, the team watched him presumably before they traded for him. Like when they found out that he was on the block, they probably looked at him. Who's to say they're not going to be better if you give him more ice time and move him up? Why does he think there has to be this massive change that's going to slow down the team and prevent them from winning. That's the kind of mentality that has to be different for this team with any coach, because otherwise you're implementing too few players every year, and the progress is too slowed at that point. You can't just do it incrementally there. They're not making the playoffs. Now, if you want to win games for the veterans, that's fine, but this guy doesn't prevent you from winning. And I don't think he gets that.
Yeah, and there's a spot sitting there with Nick Delorier
Right.
playing that we could get Peltier off the fourth line simply by getting somebody else in there, and
Correct.
that is an option. So I think it's to be continued with Peltier from our perspective.
By the time we continue, yes, there won't be any games left.
Being given a fair shake here.
Yes.
But, the clock is ticking. You are correct. On yesterday's show, we talked about the potential of a schedule structure change in the NHL. It was a lot of fun to talk about. We also kind of hinted that this will be part of the CBA negotiations. Well,
yes.
In the GM meetings, Bettman talked about the fact that those negotiations are going to start next month, which is good to see that they're getting a jump on that. He also had some more comments about the Islanders All-Star game situation that they are definitely reevaluating because of the bar that was raised at Four Nations.
That they're doomed.
And they're kind of rocking a hard place is, the minimal way to talk about
the impending doom.
Yes. So we'll see how they get out of that one, because they're supposed to kind of get it sorted before the playoffs start and do, in their big pre-playoffs presser.
Right.
They should have an answer.
My
to all
prediction
this,
is they'll get like the 2034 nations instead. It'll be something like that.
Something like that. I think so. The Flyers versus the Washington Capitals. It's the last of 4 games of the season against the Caps. Thank goodness, honestly. The Caps have won all 3 games so far. There was one in October. Well, actually, there were 2 of them in October. It was a home and home that the Flyers lost both of. And then the Flyers lost 4-3 right before the Four Nations break. Currently, the Caps are, of course, on top of the Metro Division with 98 points. And now they are first overall in the NHL as of Tuesday night, when they won their most recent game against Detroit, which was a very decisive win for them, winning 4-1. Tom Wilson got his 30th goal.
30th goal. Like, I think we need to pause
I know.
there for the Tom Wilson haters. I've tried to tell people back in the day when he played for like the Plymouth Whalers, they don't even exist anymore, right?
Right.
I got to interview him when I found out a lot about his athletic prowess outside of hockey. And that's why I ranked him so high in the draft, because I knew, hey, this guy is a tremendous athlete, track and field, all these other things. People just saw him as a fighter, but, you had to know he was more than that.
Right. And, you had a really strong performance in net by Logan Thompson. And I believe that was his 30th win of the season.
Who would have predicted that? Nobody.
I know.
Nobody.
I know. He's great, though, man. Just what a tremendous goaltender.
He's
And
never
it's
been bad, but he's never been great, right? Like, it's just he's
right.
probably just
But
never had enough of a chance. That's really what it boils
well,
down
and a
to.
great team in front of him too.
Right.
Like
Yes.
that is
Yeah.
playing. I mean, the Caps defense is playing so well
Yeah.
in front of him right now, and I think you look at their top 4, even like all 6 of them are solid defensemen. And of course, Carlson and Chikrin, I think, kind of lead the charge there as far as, the skill guys and offensive threat that they have on their blue line. And then, you look at their top 6. First of all, Connor McMichael is a dream forward. And
he was always
he's just so good.
Yeah. He's good at everything.
Yeah. Now, one aspect to this game, obviously, has been the Alexander Ovechkin goal record chase, which I am not really super interested in. I know it's a big deal intellectually, but I just can't care. And the only thing I cared about was that it not happen against the Flyers, and we know that's not happening. So we're good. We're in the clear. I'm just not looking forward to having to hear about it, as I said on Monday's show, for our nemesis of the week.
No, like, I get it, but like a long time ago, Rangers played Philly. It was Gretzky's farewell run, and I got a ticket into the Super Pretzel Suite, right? So I went there, and Gretzky got an assist that game, I think, and it was his 100th point, maybe even got 2 points, and it was his 100th points against the Flyers. And the reason I bring that up is it's going to be the same thing with Ovechkin. People are always going to say, because he played against, I mean, Gretzky didn't play against the Flyers as much as Ovechkin does, but Ovechkin plays so much, his point total is going to be high. So even though you may be avoiding that, Rachel, they're going to be talking about him and how many points he scored against Philly for a really long time after he's gone, because it's a lot of points. There's no escaping it. And that's really any team in the East, really, especially in the Metro. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. It's just like, I'm just excited for it to be over, is really what it comes down to.
I fully get it.
But it's going to be a tough game for the Flyers on the road. Caps are great at home. But I think, if they put in an effort the way they did against Tampa, I am satisfied with that. I think as long as they can have a decent amount of puck possession, try and drive the Caps to the outside, have controlled zone exits. I like that's what we're looking for.
I agree with all that. I personally don't want to see Fedotov in this game, though, because I think the extraneous Russian talk could be bad for him. And it's not so much coming from the Flyer side, but it'll be coming from the Cap side. Like all of a sudden, maybe they're going to start talking about what happened with him before he got there. And I just think the team could do well by avoiding all of that, by keeping him on the bench. And then he doesn't have the stress of having to face Ovechkin, probably somebody he loved as being a young guy. So I would try and stay away.
He's already been through that. We saw it in the
true, but not well. Like this is the last go round, like before he gets the record, though. So it is a little different. But you're right. I still would try and stay away from it. I don't know. That's just me.
I get it. I would assume Merson is starting anyway.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, Russ updated his draft rankings to version 3.0. We're going to talk about the changes from February to March, as well as looking ahead to potentially drafting Anton Frondell or Victor Eklund.
Did you know getting a good night's sleep is the #1 recipe for long-term success in life? I didn't. It took me way longer to realize than I'd like to admit. It was years of tossing and turning. I was always tired. I never felt like I could live up to my potential, but not anymore. Thanks to Bear Mattress. I used their sleep quiz and I matched with the Elite Hybrid. It's perfect for side sleepers like me. Now I wake up energized. I'm getting deeper sleeps and I'm ready to attack the day. No matter how you sleep, Bear Mattress has a match for you with a focus on recovery, cooling, and pressure relief to upgrade your sleep and improve your overall quality of life. Go to bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout for 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 40% off site-wide. Bearmattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
All right. So on tomorrow's show, we are, of course, going to recap this game against the Washington Capitals. Plus, we're going to look at our weekend games that the Flyers have against the Stars and the Blackhawks. And they're at opposite ends of development and playoff potential and all that. But what can we learn from both of these teams and where they are now in their process as we face both of them this weekend? It should be a really interesting compare and contrast between those two teams. Russ, your draft rankings, version 3.0, I dug into it as I always do.
You do.
Did some math, as I like to do. And there's a few significant changes between version 2 or version 3, and really just like overall going back to November.
Right.
So the biggest difference is a player, Charlie Trethewey, who went from 20th in November to 22nd in February, and now he's not even ranked in the your top 32. Like a little short summary of who this kid is and why has he dropped off your list?
He's a big defenseman who, not huge, but he's like 6'2". He's got good range. He plays for the NTDP. There's a lot of potential there, and he's just not reaching it offensively. Like he has a lot of tools, but he's just not putting it all together. So I think based on the way this draft is, he's got a little bit more risk now involved. And I think, with me, there's more risk involved now too, because yeah, I think he'll play in the NHL, but now I'm questioning what his offense will be like.
Now, the other big difference, and we alluded to this on an earlier show about Roger McQueen.
Yeah.
He went from 4 to 5 to 12. And that drop is mostly due to the fact that he missed a ton of time due to injury. And he's back now, but we still need to see, like, is he truly recovered and where is he at, right?
Right. Can he stay back? Can he play this whole string through? Is he going to continue to try and fight? Like these kinds of things, affected it. Look, he's 6'5". He'll be 6'5" all day long as a center. So he probably won't drop much more in my eyes, but I couldn't put him in the top 10 because if it's something that crops up during his playing career, he's going to miss significant time. So that's the risk.
Right.
There's risk now.
Yep. The third biggest change overall is Jake O'Brien. So he started out not even on your ranking, right?
Because I just
And
didn't know
then,
him.
right. And then when you evaluated him, you put him in at number 11 initially, and now he's at 8. What led to him creeping up the rankings here?
He's like a high floor guy. So now in this draft, he's got pretty good certainty that you know what you're getting. And there's not going to be any
He's a center, by the
surprises.
way.
He's a
Just
center. And
yeah.
there's a certain amount of good centers. We know what Mark Rake said as far as, ones, and he's not a 1, but he could be a 2. And yeah, there's going to be certainty that, yeah, you're 90% sure this guy could play in the NHL. So, and that's where I'm at now, from not knowing him in time to get him on the early rankings to now
Right.
putting him in that spot.
And just as a reminder, we do have all of this data available to you. There's a link in the show notes, as well as it's pinned to our social profiles on Twitter and Blue Sky, a link directly to this spreadsheet that has information about all the prospects we've covered so far and will continue to cover as we get close to the draft. It has Russ's latest rankings. You can see the history of his rankings. Plus some information about overall draft episodes, like when we cover World Juniors and stuff like that. So make sure you take a look at that to get the latest and greatest NHL draft coverage out there. But it's just really interesting to see, who moves around a lot and who pretty much stays static here the whole time, because everybody else on your list either stayed where they were or only moved one spot.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And it's interesting. Like I went back and looked at, where did I have Lane Hudson at? I know I had him in the first round at some point, and I did in like a version 3 or something. I had him in like the 31st spot, and I eventually moved him out. He ended up going, I think, 60. But I would have ranked him higher than that. He would have been like one of my first 4 or 5 picks of the second round. But there was still at that time a little bit of question, maybe what his durability could be. And now there's no question. Lane Hudson scored a goal last night that was just off the charts incredible.
Right.
So, but this is what happens though. Like if these guys were 2-3 years older, it'd be a lot easier to do. And if people want to go to sportsology.com, you can go back and see my drafts for a lot longer than what's on even this list. And online, you can go back probably to 2014 and interviews and whatever. So my stuff's out there. I can't hide.
Right. Yeah, that's like the tough part about this biz, I think, is, the evidence is out there.
It's out there. It's like I don't scrub it. I don't take it off the net. Like we did do a remodel on Sportsology, so a couple of drafts don't exist. But there's a guy out there that has every one of my drafts. Like he's doing a comparison with me and a bunch of guys, and he hasn't put that out yet. So someday that'll pop up. So yeah, you can't escape.
Looking forward to that for sure.
I don't know if I am or not.
All right. So I think that there's a couple interesting things going on here. And the other thing too is that sometimes we pick who we're going to cover based on kind of where the Flyers are.
Yes.
With their top first round draft pick, especially. So for example, we talked about Caleb Denoye in our last profile, partially because it was a listener request, which we're always happy to do, but partially because he's ranked in a very good spot
He
relative to
is.
where the Flyers were exactly at that
And he
time.
could go higher than where I have him
And
ranked. Just understand that
right,
too. He could.
right. Yeah, this is not a draft,
Mock
like a
draft, no.
mock draft. It's a ranking, and those are
Yeah.
different
If a
things.
couple
Okay,
centers
but
go early, he's going earlier.
right, exactly. So to talk about Caleb Denoyer was very important to do. Anton Frondell and Jacob Eklund are important to talk about, not only because they're great players, but also because they're sitting in basically the 5 and 6 spot
Yeah.
right now. Where are the Flyers right now? In the 5 spot.
Right.
So that's also why it's important to talk about these guys. They both play for Djurgården in the Swedish second division
Right.
right now, because they're younger, right?
Yeah.
It's not because they can't play higher. I think they will eventually,
They will eventually.
but
Next year,
they're in
probably.
this, yeah, probably. So, but they're in the second tier league right now. They've both also played in the U20 league, and they happen to be on a line together as well. This whole thing must be so weird for them.
It's got to
But
be.
yeah, so Frondell does play center, but he's
Hmm.
currently on the wing
Hmm.
on this team, on the left side, and Eklund is the winger on the right side, and they're on the third line together on Jurgen, and it's like I love this. I love this whole thing for them.
Yeah,
Um, but they're very different players in a
they
lot
are.
of ways, right?
Yeah, I would say this. Like Frondell's definitely a center. Whether he could play 1C, it's most likely 2C, but he's the kind of guy that if he hit a zenith, he probably could play 1C. He probably could pull it off. A couple of years ago when I saw him, he was terrific, and he was one of the youngest players in the tournament back in Michigan. And, and that's something where it's like, wow, this guy could really be something. And I think he would have been even higher in this draft had he not sort of like not had a great year last year and started off slow this year. He's picked it up. Like he's picked it up
Hmm.
lately points wise.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, points matter. And so like, people are always going to look at it, but he has one of the best wrist shots in the draft. Like his shot is heavy and deadly, but he also plays a good two-way game. His skating's real good. Like these guys, we're talking about them like they're third liners, but it really is just because of age. They're not going to be third liners for long.
correct. Yeah, Frondell is the 17-year-old. Let's be
Right.
clear here,
Right.
playing in the second tier pro league in
Correct.
Sweden. So there's going to be something to that. He doesn't turn 18 till May.
Right.
He's a decent size. He's already 6 feet.
Yep.
He's just shy of 200 pounds, which is very good for a young kid that size. He'll obviously gain more strength,
Yeah.
but he's already a good size. And he was literally just named Rookie of the Year for that league. So that is a great honor for him.
It
You
is.
mentioned his scoring having picked up. Only 2 out of his last 10 games did he not register a point.
That's
So
awesome.
8 of 10 games,
Yeah.
he has registered at least a point of recent play. And they had a U18 Five Nations tournament, and against the national team development program, he got 2 goals and an assist in that
Yeah,
game.
that's
So
what
it's
I
pretty good.
saw him in
Pretty
2
good.
years ago, and he was still good in that. Now he's great in it. So yeah, that's a big
Right.
deal. And yeah, 2 goals is pretty good.
Yeah. So we're going to talk more about him and then get into his teammate, Victor Eklund. And I know Eklund is a common name, but it's even more of a big deal just because of who his brother is. We're
Right.
going to get into all of that coming up next.
March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. I would say bet on University of Houston, my alma mater. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly, no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, so continuing our conversation about our potential Swedish draft picks here, I think that, you look at Victor Eklund, who is a smaller guy, but not by much, but he is not built out yet.
No,
Even
he's
though
slight of frame. When you see him, he's slight.
yeah, yeah. So even though he's older, he's already 18 and he has an October birthday. So he has, a good amount of time on him. He's definitely a guy that's going to have to bulk up, right?
Yeah.
But because of him being a little bit older and a little bit more advanced in his development, he was on Team Sweden for World Juniors
Right.
and had a pretty solid
Yeah,
tournament
solid
for
tournament.
them.
Yeah, I really liked what I
Yeah,
saw.
he's not like the top scorer on that team, but
No.
considering he's on the younger side for
Yeah.
that age group,
Next year
I
he
think
would.
it was yeah, yeah, and, he only played 1 game at the U20 level this year because he's kind of outgrown that, right?
Right.
So he's further along. He has a higher scoring rate than Frondell, and he's not like he can have a two-way game, but this guy is speed, he's
Mhm.
tenacious, and it's
Mhm.
like he's not a thinker in the same way that Frondell is,
No.
right?
No, it's more instinctive. You're right. He's
Yeah,
pure offense. Like it's funny. I saw him in that same Five Nations a couple years ago, and I didn't know him at all. And I'm like, oh, is this his brother? And it was William's brother. And I'm like,
yep,
damn, this guy could be better. And I do think he's going to
I
be better.
know. Yeah,
And yeah,
younger one always is
yeah. We most of the time.
most of the time.
What I like about him is, like you said, he's pretty elusive, so he doesn't get creamed for those people that
Right,
are worried, like, hey, are we going to get this guy and he's too skinny? No. That's not going to be a problem. He's smart with the puck. He understands puck possession. He makes great passes. He's got a much better shot than he used to. That was one thing about seeing the World Juniors live. I could see how his shot progressed as far as how hard it hits the goalie, and it's a bullet. But his thing is he has a little more skill than Frondell in the sense that his vision's better. He just has exceptional vision. And
right.
so, but again, Frondell's got the all-around game, and that's where
Yeah,
he's got him beat,
yeah,
like you said. But if you get Eklund, you're not worried about him making the NHL. You're just worried about him, like you said, getting stronger. And when's he going to be there? Because his skating is great, his edge work is great. He's
yeah.
really,
Everybody loves his skating.
yeah,
Everybody.
he's just a fun guy to watch. Like you notice him instantly when he hits the ice.
Right. And that's what's interesting about the rankings and evaluation and these two guys in particular, because on most rankings, people have Frondell higher than
Right.
Eklund. And it's usually just by 1 or 2 slots,
Yeah.
but they're very close, but they have Frondell higher. And it is because partially that two-way game, but you look at the swath of rankings for Frondell and it's wider. It goes, as high as 3 and maybe as low as 18 in some
Right.
instances, right? So the floor is a lot lower and the range is a lot bigger. Eklund, it's a very tight range where
Right.
he's ranked. The high is 4, the low is 10, and that's it,
I think
pretty
I could
much.
explain it. I think it's that because Frondell a couple years ago could have been like top 3 in this draft, right? And then,
Mhm.
in some people's minds he slipped, and then he started off the year slow. And I think I don't want to say everybody's been slow and kind of coming around to what he is now, which is really good. And we just talked about a strong finish, but maybe they are.
Yeah, yeah, I just find it really interesting just because Eklund has this dynamic offensive game that maybe Frondell is productive, but he's a slow
Yes.
and steady guy,
Yeah, he gets the
and he's
job
a
done. He's not flashy like
right.
Eklund at all.
Right. So one might think that the flashiness would get you the overall higher ranking, but people are valuing the two-way game a little bit
They are.
more than I might have thought
Because he's a
in this
potential
scenario.
1C, even though he's probably never going to play 1C, but there's the hope. And so the hope
Right.
of that is always going to outpace anything, that's close.
Yeah, so when it comes down to it, I guess for the Flyers now, like if you have both of these guys on the table, you're picking next and everybody else you wanted is gone.
Right.
These are your top 2 and you're the Flyers in particular. Who do you go for?
I have to take Frondell because there's that chance that he could be a 1C. And if everything went right and he's the 1C, Luchenko's the 2, great. If not, if Luchenko's the 1 and he's the 2, great. So I have to do it just because of that. I would love to have them both. I would try
Right.
and do something that like what the Bruins did
Listen.
and get multiple picks in a row and get them both. If I could pull that off, I'm doing that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I just think like both of them are very appealing to me for different
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah.
And I think, you have a guy like Mitchkov already on the team who is a very dynamic player,
Yeah.
right? But he's not always going to be the shooting guy.
Right.
And I think Eklund complements that in a
Yes.
lot of ways because he'll take the shot.
Oh yeah. He's
And
not
and
afraid
to
to
have
shoot.
right, and to have 2 lines for the Flyers that have a dynamic player that other teams have to worry about is very, very tempting, but
True.
also we need a center. So I
Right.
get it. It's just
Yeah,
it's tough.
that's the
It's real
dynamic.
tough.
Yeah, that's what makes the
Yeah.
dynamic tough. But that's why, yeah, if you could bundle a bunch of picks and get them both, get them both.
Yeah. I do not disagree, and it would be really cool to have both these guys come over from their Swedish team and be on the
Great
Flyers
continuity.
together. I love the idea of that. So let's wish that to happen. Say all your prayers to the hockey gods, and maybe it will come true. The one little ding, we've talked a lot of positivity about both
Yeah.
of these guys.
Yeah.
The one little ding I do want to mention is that there was a scouting note about a game that Eklund had that Frondell did not play in, and that
Mhm.
there was no difference in Eklund's game, and that there's kind of this like undercurrent of a question of is Eklund propping up Lundell's game here?
I see. It's funny. Like I don't think this is Sidney Crosby and Danny Rusin. Go look up Danny Rusin. You'll see he had like 126 points. I don't think it's a
Mhm.
situation even close to that in Rimouski. I don't think it's like that. I never really thought that. There have been times where you see sometimes with players combinations where you say, okay, and in a way, McKinnon, Drouin definitely got propped up by McKinnon,
A
no question.
little bit, yeah.
But Drouin's talented, but certainly not to the pace he was at with McKinnon. But I don't think, Eklund is to the point where he's driving so much play for Frondell. So I don't think it's like that.
Right. All right. Well, we'll add these guys to our spreadsheet list. Again, the link to that is in the show notes as well as pinned to our social media profile. So you can take a look anytime and go back. We have links to the episodes that we talked about, all of the prospects listed. So you can watch that over on YouTube directly from the spreadsheet. That will do it for today's show. We will be back tomorrow to talk Flyers versus Caps and preview those weekend games against Dallas and Chicago. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. You can send in those mailbag questions or Flyers thoughts, draft prospects you want us to cover on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. It brings you daily league-wide stories that matter with local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.